Hello, my name is Harry Schultz with the Waypoint Technology Group, and today we'll be looking at the Trimble R10 eBubble functions and the calibration of the eBubble. Our objectives for today's video tutorial are to look at the Trimble SurePoint technology, how it is used, how it is turned on and off in the survey style, the tilt auto measure function, how it is turned on and off in the survey style, and lastly, how to calibrate the eBubble on the Trimble R10 GNSS receiver. Some of the relevant hardware software involved are the Trimble R10 and the Trimble Access Field software. Let's go ahead and talk about Trimble SurePoint technology. It is a feature in the Trimble R10 GNSS receiver that utilizes an integrated tilt sensor and an electronic bubble, otherwise known as the eBubble, to offer the highest possible positioning accuracy. This technology also guards against collecting erroneous data by warning users against storing measurements when the survey pole is out of plumb. When should you calibrate the eBubble on your Trimble R10 receiver? If you have reached the date for which the current calibration has expired, you'll likely get a screen that looks like this on your data collector. This usually happens after you've started the survey, before you've begun to measure any points. It just simply states that the tilt sensors are not calibrated. This usually comes up after the current calibration has expired. Those are typically set to expire in 30 days. Another time you want to calibrate the eBubble on the Trimble R10 is whenever the current temperature inside the receiver is more than 86 degrees Fahrenheit, different from when the current calibration was performed. Also, if the receiver suffers severe abuse such as a pole drop, or if you're in an area where there is significantly different local gravitational conditions than there was during the last calibration. Maybe you're standing next to a large granite mountain or something like that. What's needed is the Trimble R10 and a power source, a field computer with the Trimble Access Field software, a tripod with a reliable tri-rack. You can use a prism pole. Maybe you got the bipod on there and it's stable enough and you trust the level bubble on that prism pole. That could be used as well. Some additional notes on using the eBubble on your Trimble R10. The receiver does not need to be tracking satellites to calibrate the eBubble. Because the calibration time is stored in the receiver, though, it's important that the controller has the correct time and date. Also, the details of the calibration, including the tilt calibration status, are stored in the job and can be reviewed from the Jobs Review job menu. The receiver cannot detect tilt when moving, since it is based on readings from the accelerometer. And also the eBubble is aligned to the R10 receiver's LED panel. To operate the eBubble correctly, the LED panel must be facing you. In other words, if you were out there in the field trying to use the eBubble and the LED panel on the R10 is faced away from you or in some other direction, you're looking at the eBubble and trying to move it back to the center to get it into the leveled condition. You're going to have a hard time doing that if it's not if you're not lined up with the LED panel of the R10. Okay, next I'd like to look at the Trimble Access Field software, so I can show you how to turn the tilt eBubble functionality on or off in your particular survey style. To do that, we're going to start from the Trimble Access home screen and select Settings, Survey Styles, and just pick any of your GNSS survey styles. You'll notice that the tilt and eBubble options are in the rover options of all those GNSS survey styles. I'm going to select a real-time based survey style here and select Edit. Under rover options, I'll click Edit again, and down on the third page here is where I can turn that eBubble tilt functionality on and off. So I'm going to leave it on here and hit accept. And oftentimes when you turn your tilt eBubble functionality on, if you go under your topo point here, you'll notice that the tilt auto measure is also selected. Tilt auto measure enables you to measure a topo point, compensated point, or a rapid point automatically when the pole is within a predefined tilt tolerance. So basically what happens is you set a tilt tolerance, you would enter this mode or sequence called tilt auto measure, and anytime that you hold the rod steady and you're within that tilt tolerance, the software is going to automatically trigger a measurement without you having to select a measure. That is a sequence or a routine that's you start and end similar to like a continuous topo, if you ever use that functionality. So if that's not something you want to use out in the field, you can go ahead and deselect that. I'll store these changes, and next we'll go into the calibration of the Trimble R10 itself. So to do that, we're going to go into General Survey. We need to be connected to the R10 as we are here, and there's a couple different ways to get into the eBubble settings. One way is to just simply hold your stylus on the Trimble R10 icon here, and you'll see it takes us to the receiver settings where we can launch the eBubble options right from there. Another way to get into your eBubble options is back out at the General Survey menu. I can select Instrument and eBubble options. So here's where we're going to calibrate the eBubble. I'll hit Calibrate along the bottom there, and you'll notice that we're forced to start with the tilt calibration. We can't skip down to the magnometer or magnometer alignment calibrations. That's simply because once we do the tilt calibration, when you recalibrate the tilt sensor, you invalidate the magnometer model, so that should be recalibrated as well. So we have to work through these from top to bottom here. So I'll start with the tilt calibration. And my R10 is set up on a tripod with a tri-brac. It's already level, so I'm just going to hit start. It's a pretty quick process here. Okay, now my tilt calibration was successfully completed. You'll notice I can run down to the magnometer calibration. So I'll hit calibrate and simply move the receiver as it's shown. One thing to note during this type of calibration is that if you rotate the R10 any more than 15 degrees, it's going to take longer to calibrate. So what I'm doing is just rolling the receiver itself towards me and turning it no more than 15 degrees. So when I'm ready, I'll select start, roll the receiver towards me, rotate 15 degrees. You also want to be away from any sources of magnetic disturbance. So this, depending on how many times you've done this, if you're just starting out, it could take several minutes to complete this process. Okay, so my magnometer is calibrated. Having a hard time with that word there. And finally we'll do the magnometer alignment calibration. So to do this, I'm just going to put it back on my tripod where I can freely rotate it, and I can ensure that it's still level while it's rotating. So to go ahead and initiate this, and again it gives you instructions on how to do it. Just rotating around at an even pace with the receiver completely level. Okay, just finishing up here. And now we've completed the 3 calibration routines. You can come over here and hit accept, and you can see that I have an eBubble right in the bottom right here. We can move this around if need be. Since we're at the eBubble options screen, let's talk about some of the settings here. So the eBubble sensitivity relates to the size of this black circle here. The narrower the circle means the higher the sensitivity. So you can see up at the highest sensitivity here we have the smallest circle. We also have the response time. So that's just how quickly the bubble moves around when you move the rod, or the response time. We also have the tilt tolerance up here. The tilt tolerance is defined as the distance on the ground that the tilt represents given the antenna height. So if the pole is held such that the resultant distance on the ground, or the tilt distance, is less than the tilt tolerance, the eBubble will display green and the point can be measured, as we see here. We can also set our calibration age limit. Trimble recommends that you do the at least the tilt calibration every time the batteries are changed in the Trimble R10, but the most amount of time you can get away with is the 30 days here. So that concludes our video tutorial on the Trimble eBubble functions and calibration. Some related tech tips to this include measuring a compensated point using Trimble Access. Have a good day and thank you for joining me.